Thank you, Katie, for that kind introduction. Good morning, everybody. It's a thrill to be here in London and also speak at the Innovate Finance Global Summit. People sometimes say that time stops for no one, and I think the same could be said about technology these days. It's actually even hard to avoid the impression that it's all going faster and faster, right? This late year and a half, we're all very busy about thinking about AI and how that can affect things, but we are clearly in a very busy and contradictory times. And when it comes to regulations, what to bring in to the realm of regulations and when is also changing. So in my very short remarks today, I would like to propose what I would like to call a framework. It would help us guide embracing innovation and some solve the challenges confronting the world I'm come from, which is central banking and regulatory communities. I hope that this sort of thinking, this sort of framework, could be particularly useful interactions between the public and the private sector. Now, first, a core question is, over the next decade, how do we wish to respond to what is likely to become even faster changes, bringing with it significant opportunities and potentially some groundbreaking challenges? I will argue that this framework must inform all kinds of activities that we take, because we want to find the best balance between, on one hand, the public sector objective of having financial stability and safety, but also make sure that we find the right place to get the financial industry to thrive. Before I go ahead, let me just say a few words about what the BIS Innovation Hub is all about. You can think about it as a joint venture between, on one hand, the Bank for International Settlements that is owned by 60-plus central banks, and also a few numbers of individual central banks on the other side of these joint ventures. So Bank of England is one of them. We've been in operation for nearly 5 years, and you can think about us as a laboratory developing public goods. And we know a lot about what it takes to experiment and bring value to the public sector. And we also have a clear understanding where the challenges are. We develop projects creating proof of concept and prototypes, for example, exploring new platforms and technologies, basically demonstrating to our masters the art of the possible. We are about 100 people in the staff, and we have 7 centers across the world, and we have started more than 30 projects. And our work spans in 6 focus areas. Central bank digital currencies and financial market infrastructures are the 2. Green finance, open finance is another 2, and also the one that I want to focus on today. Cybersecurity is also one, and the one that I want to focus on today, which is supervisory technology, or SupTech for short. It's all about using technology to support financial stability. And in this space, we're also exploring what's called regulatory technology. And to make our lives even more exciting and busy, we have also added a new area that we call monetary policy tech, to basically be there all around the central banks, helping them finding the right technologies to do their core tasks. So now when you know a little bit more about who we are, let's look at how we should approach the challenges ahead. So the first point in my framework today is transparent and honest engagement with a broad range of stakeholders. And you might think to yourself, that must be a given, right? But actually it's not. Central banks and supervisors face challenges like modernizing legacy systems and technology infrastructure, and designing tools using new technologies to make sure they are the best versions of themselves. But with these sort of challenges for the public sector, there are also some hard questions. And the public sector needs to sort of ask itself, how willing are they to really share, be transparent to a satisfactory level about their difficulties and their challenges, given that everything almost they do is sensitive and the work is generally complex. And also going forward, that's just today's issue, and going forward as we see our societies transform in the tech space, it can sometimes be quite a challenge for the public sector assessing and communicating views and directions on where we should go. And this sort of self-appraisal that central banks and supervisors need to do is hard at the best of times, but the public sector authorities on the financial side of our societies are, I would say, struggling quite a lot with these things. Which brings me really to the second key point of this framework, which is about collaboration. Us who are in the public sector need to join forces with you who are in the private sector, building technology solutions that shapes the future of supervision and support financial stability. Public sector is not always the easiest of customers, often having a bit more vague objectives compared to what you typically find in companies. We are also typically a very complex organism, multitude of specializations, different priorities that often change over time very quickly. So doing business with the public sector, well, it also means specific processes to ensure fair and systematic decision-making and to be transparent about public money, how it is spent, procurement regulations, and you know what I'm talking about. So public sector has to follow all these regulations, and it takes time, and we are not the most profitable of customers either. One more issue is that subtech, as far as we have reached to this point today, is a pretty small market. The BIS Innovation Hub London Centre conducted a survey in this field some time ago, and about half of the vendors we asked pointed this out. The subtech is a pretty small market. And I'll come back to this survey we did with vendors a few more times, and we will actually publish its full results and our analysis around the relationship between subtech vendors and authorities later in the year. But we think from our side that the subtech is critical in supporting effective and efficient supervision, from achieving real-time risk alerts to support automated regulatory compliance. And to make that kind of progress, experimentation is a key feature. We know that our colleagues across the central banking and supervisory worlds believe in that as well. Recent research that we did at the Hub together with something called the Financial Stability Institute, which is also part of the BIS, we asked across 50 jurisdictions and of central banks and supervisors, and it highlighted that over 90% of them have already deployed different kinds of subtech tools, most commonly for regulatory reporting, assessing risk, and automating supervisory processes. Examples, I think you can see them here, are about dashboards to monitor capital, liquidity, credit, and market risk, very much sort of bread and butter issues for supervisors, but also moving into natural language processing to monitor and analyze social medias, news, financial statements, etc. And 80% of the financial institutions on the public sector sides that we surveyed have dedicated internal resources to build these tools. So we know that there is appetite. We know that there is also technical capability in the public sector, and that's the good news. However, and you might have heard this already several times, majority of these tools are at an early stage of maturity, focusing largely also on existing workflows. So early experiments only sort of handling existing workflows. We know they are not being widely adopted inside institutions. Many solutions built in-house sort of get stuck at the proof of concept or prototype stage and limiting therefore the potential value. So lots of experimentation, so far very little deployment. Job not yet done, and there is still a long way to go to achieve this sort of technology-first approach. So the Innovation Hub here, where I come in and my staff, we try to accelerate important changes in two ways. So we experiment and we collaborate. And in the experimentation field, we are, as I said, we're building as well proof of concepts and prototypes. For example, monitoring stable coins, understanding other new novel technologies like DeFi and crypto assets. And we are doing these things together with the central banks, because we think that is a good way to build trust and make sure that ultimately central banks and supervisors become more confident and much more clearer as procurers of private sector services. Which brings me actually to what I would call the supply side of subtech. We always bring in the private sector in our various projects, but we can see that the current dynamic of the supply and demand side of the subtech market is not without challenges. And coming back to the BIS Innovation Hub London Centre survey, we find that breaking down various barriers and allow further collaboration between, again, financial authorities and the subtech solution providers, it's not easy. One of the very sobering messages that this survey gave us was that half of the subtech vendors told us that, and here I quote, lack of visibility into the prioritized needs of financial authorities is a key challenge for expanding their subtech portfolio. So the private sector tells us, take it again, because I think this is a very good, clear message. The subtech vendors, half of them say to us on the public sector side, lack of visibility into the prioritized needs of financial authorities is a key challenge for expanding the subtech portfolio. It makes it really hard to match public sector problems with private sector solutions. So we need to find better ways to collaborate and understand one another. We try to do our bit. We do more showcasing events. We do tech sprints and hackathons. We think we know that the private sector is also valuing this as a way to engage. And by the way, I'll take this opportunity to say that we will have a subtech tech sprint later this year. But this is just an example. We need more ways to better understand each other. We've also noted that over 2/3 of the vendors complain about the procurement process, the length and the complexities, and that affects their ability to successfully engage. And one obvious problem here is that this is more likely to hurt smaller firms as it increases uncertainty and risk. And this would mean that only large and established ones are able to engage at the expense of the smaller startup community, where we know that innovation and cutting-edge thinking often happens first. So, as I mentioned before, we are obliged, public institutions, to have these procurement processes mandated by law, etc. But perhaps, and we are looking into this as well, scope to improve our processes that make them truly inclusive for firms of all sizes. There is certainly room for improvements there, and if there is a will, I'm sure we will find ways. So, again, the message is clear. It's up to us in the public sector to be better customers of your subtech tools that we need. We need to better articulate our needs to the market and find ways to be more inclusive. In this way, I think we benefit from all the choices available in the subtech marketplace and continue to be up to date with the latest technologies. We know that with our current stance, we're probably missing out a lot. We don't know what we don't know. So let me conclude and wrap up. The Hub aims to create public goods to promote global financial stability. As those of you who are deep into innovation know, this is hard work to innovate. It's risky, many ways countercultural to how central banks and supervisors traditionally work. But we take the challenge full on and enjoy it. Subtech innovation continues to be essential to safeguarding our financial system. And to best achieve it, we need to operate within a sort of spirit of mind, a framework that combines recognizing the need of the multiple stakeholders that is in the public sector with working more effectively with you who have great ideas and great services to offer in the private sector. Very excited to play our part in this progress. Hope I can invite you all to join us in creating financially better infrastructures for the future. Thank you very much for listening.